Hey there, it took me a little bit longer than normally does because I haven't played as much this season, but I have hit Legend in the Go Battle League, and in this video I'm going to show you the team and the battles in which I've done it with. This is a team that I used. Steelix has Heavy Slam as one of the charge decks. I recommend Earthquake, I just didn't want to use a charge TM on it. The save switch kind of depends on what you see in the lead. If there's like a Galarian Moltres counter in the lead, then after that is knocked out, I like to just throw in my Galarian Moltres at some point because in Ultra League, teams rarely hard counter two Pokemon that has like fire. So that's kind of how it works. Both Dusknoir and Galarian Moltres work as a save switch. I do not recommend Heavy Slam again because if you face an opposing Steelix, which is common, then you're a walled, which is bad. In my first battle, I lead into a Shadow Scizor. Now, the way I used to play this out, I went to a Heavy Slam and throw that just straight up into them because opponents hardly ever shield. That's what I thought, actually, but they always tend to shield because even a crunch would hurt a lot, so I just go straight Breaking Swipe here. You could go straight for Earthquake, but honestly, for me, I just prefer to get this lower. It is usually... Scizor is often paired with like a Dragon type in the back. It shouldn't be a Fairy type Pokemon because then the opponent is hard ABA into a Fire type. So Galarian Moltres usually is quite good into these kind of teams. I'm going to keep my energy and swap in my Moltres. In the back is Regidrago. This is a very neutral matchup. Of course, Dragon Energy is a Frenzy Plant clone, so it's going to deal a lot of damage if I let that go. Breaking Swipe, on the other hand, wouldn't hit that hard, so I kind of want to no-shield that if it is. And that is a very tempting move to throw because it has an attack drop chance, which my opponent does throw, and they do get that. Now, I throw a Fly here. This is not a Brave Bird. That's because I want my opponent to no-shield. And they can get a farm down if they try to go for that. It looks like they want to retain some health on their Regidrago. Very fine. I still have a Breaking Swipe stored as well, which I could throw, or I just go straight in my Dusknoir to go for a farm down. It would be annoying if they get an attack dropped here, though. But at this point, they need something like their own Galarian Moltres, which is possible with a Scizor lead, to win this battle. In the back is a Gastrodon. Looks like my opponent doesn't give a flying crap about Talonflame anyway. However, this Gastrodon might run Water Pulse just for those Talonflames. So I think I can get to 3 Shadow Punch here. However, if my opponent baits a Body Slam, they would outpace me to Body Slam plus Earth Power and Dusknoir. Not fragile, but also doesn't have a high HP stat, so that kind of is an offset there. I'm gonna go straight for another Shadow Punch, and I believe I'm 1 or 2 Astonish off, which would knock out this Gastrodon. Do they try to catch? I predict that they do, and they do go for a catch. Now go for the Dynamic Punch, which isn't the same type of attack bonus, but it does hit a little bit harder. My opponent's hoping that I would throw immediately, but I'm not. And in comes Regidrago, in comes Gastrodon. I win Charge Security Tie. Dynamic Punch will knock out this Gastrodon for the very first win of this video. My next opponent has a pretty nasty core breaker. This is Alolan Sandslash. If it has Shadow Claw, it makes it even worse because I cannot really take the energy on my backline as much, and Shadow Claw is also super effective on my Dusknoir. The way I'm going to play this out is just stay in. Here's the thing. My opponents usually don't expect Heavy Slam. And again, it's a bad attack. But at least it deals some damage. So now I get this Alolan Sandslash low enough that I can Astonish it down. I'll take a an Ice Punch if I need to on my Dusknoir. They actually swap out into Golisopod with Shadow Claw, though. So that makes me swap into the Galarian Moltres. If they had Fury Cutter, I would have stayed in because Fury Cutter is resisted on my Dusknoir and I'm giving that a little bit of a better matchup. I think my Galarian Moltres will be decent in the back regardless. That Alolan Sandslash is running Shadow Claw, so it doesn't deal as much fast attack pressure on the Moltres either. I'm gonna no-shield this as well. I can take it, but now it really comes down to what is in the back. I kind of expect a Jellicent here, which is pretty weak into Dark-type Pokemon, but it's a common, or well, a logical core at least. Swapping into my Dusknoir immediately. I will put the Protect Shield up here because I still had 2 of them, so may as well. And then I want to get rid of this Golisopod. And now it really comes down to what's in the back. I think that the Alolan Sandslash needs to faint into Astonish for it not being able to get to a charge stack. And in the back is indeed a Jellicent. And this should be a pretty fine. Opponent tries to farm, but because they catch the Astonish there, they won't be able to get to a charge stack. Because otherwise they would have, because they live to Astonish, but because they catch it on their Alolan Sandslash, they actually take additional damage there. In my next battle, we're gonna get a good lead, a really good lead, because all three of our Pokemon are very fine here. Dusknoir, arguably the worst. My opponent's checking if I have Dragon Tail or not. They swap into their own Thunderfang Steelix, and I don't need Switch here, so this is kind of great. Steelix has access to Crunch, which is super effective. I kind of need to be careful of that, but all I want is to just get chip damage into this. As long as the Steelix is low, it's not really a threat anymore, because most Steelix have Psychic Fangs and then Crunch or Earthquake, which means that the energy is entirely resisted by my Galarian Moltres, so I could just get a very nice farm down on that if they do decide to go for Switch, and I'm actually happy that they do try to. Even expending their energy pretty much immediately, I don't need to field that. I'm just gonna let it go, that's just fine. Because that Drifloon has nowhere to go. Gonna go into my Moltres. A debuff would be very annoying, getting denied a turn here as well. Because then that Drifloon might hang on to my payback. I do get a little bit more farm, so I guess I have that going for me. Let's see what they come in with here. If they come with Drifloon, I'm okay with that, but it looks like my opponent gives up right away. So yes, alignment there, but the point is, Drifloon, you do not need to fight for Switch. Now, Greninja or Feraligatr are interesting leads, because the opponent usually tends to throw an attack and then swap. I usually shield that up, just in case they are pretty weak to the Steelix. And now I expect them to switch out. If they stay in, it's actually more annoying because you need a lot more Thunderfangs to win that. I'm going to swap into my Dusknoir. I resist Fury Cutter, and most Gliscor, they have Aerial Ace and Earthquake. Both Moltres and Dusknoir are very fine there. If they have Sand Attack, I swap in Moltres. If they have Fury Cutter, I like Dusknoir a little bit better. I'm not going to shield this. If they have Night Slash, it would actually suck, because that probably means that Galarian Moltres would resist all the Earthquake damage as well, so they don't deal a lot of damage. But it's fine as well. I do not want to lose Switch, though, because my Galarian Moltres does not have a lot of good play into that Greninja, which shoots up. Luckily, Dusknoir just barely bulky enough to hang on there. Gonna go for a Shadow Punch. They get a Water Shuriken down, which I really hate, but at this point, I'm just hoping that I can basically win on good alignment here. I have some good energy on the Steelix, which I'm going to throw right here, a Breaking Swipe. The opponent does not need to shield this because it is not the same type attack bonus and a pretty weak attack from a bulky Pokemon. I can take this if I want to. Kind of depends on what I predict in the back here, so I will shield up just in case Fairy type Pokemon in the back. In the back is a Golurk. We just win this game because they have no play there. In our next game, we're going to play against the most annoying Pokemon in the Ultra League meta, which is Bellibolt. Now, if Bellibolt has Sucker Punch, it's actually a really close matchup, and in fact, a matchup that Bellibolt will almost win. My opponent is being very smart here, though. They try not only to catch, but also save 2 Parabolic Charge to snipe whatever Pokemon I have later. So this is actually really scary, especially because I don't have Earthquake. I'm going to answer this Virizion with my Ghost-type Pokemon. My Flyer is fine here. However, I expect Stone Edge, because otherwise you don't save switch Virizion. If you get counted by a Talonflame or Skeletor, it's basically over without Stone Edge. But also, when shields are up, Moltres just doesn't do that hot here, because I need to pull shields away before I can land Apply. Sucker Punch is resisted. That's not going to do so well. I'm gonna go for the Neck Punch to secure a almost knockout. Shadow Punch definitely would not have done the job. And now, what they're gonna do is just buff themselves up. And this makes it only more annoying. Now, I'm really hoping my opponent switches, because if this thing keeps buffing up, my Steelix might not even be able to take it out. They actually catch the Breaking Swipe at 1 turn lag there as well into our friend. And Drifblim is amazing to have here. So, Galarian Moltres can actually take 2 Icy Winds, so that makes it an ideal Pokemon here. What I want is to just come out with a lot of energy. I do not want to throw anything in this. If I swapped Galarian Moltres in immediately, I may not even be able to get out... well, I do get out with 100 energy, but they might actually... Actually, I might have to throw at some point then. I'm gonna go right here. I get really low on health. Because I didn't take any Astonish damage prior to Ice Wind won't be enough. I'm gonna go for the payback here. I'm really hoping they no-shield, keeping the shields for Earthquake. And they actually do shield that, so that's actually really rough. And I should throw immediately there. Should throw my Breaking Swipe immediately before they start buffing up. So this is gonna get really, really rough. If this wasn't a whole VOD of 2 hours, I would have skipped a little bit. But as you can see, yes, the debuff is really nice there. I didn't throw because I kind of hesitated between throwing or not, since I can bait a potential Earthquake. They don't know my second attack yet. But they definitely know that that is not an Earthquake, so... Also, there's no shield, so you don't even need to bait at that point. I'm gonna go straight Breaky Swipe. My opponent's probably like, what? They must have like Psychic Fangs. No, we have Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam is resisted by Electric type Pokemon, so not an attack you want to throw there. I'm gonna shield the Parabolic Charge. I was hoping there was going to be a Zap Cannon. As you can see, without Earthquake, guys, this gets way too close. Right, as you can see, this Belly Bolt getting pretty low. They're actually going for the Zap Cannon now, which could drop my attack. But as you can figure, the timer's almost up, and I'm gonna throw right before the next Parabolic Charge. If they threw Parabolic Charge, they actually could have done this to me, and then they may have won if they had a little bit more health. Now I have more health, and I win that game. In our next battle, we lead Steelix into another Steelix. I have played it out at the start, but I've started to swap out and just pray that there's no Galarian Moltres in the back. Not exactly great strategy, but that's life sometimes. They go for a Charge Tech there. That is not a crunch, so I'm not going to shield that. And then going for the Dynamic Punch. Super effective. It really makes me curious of what's in the back. If they stay in, it usually means there's something like a Drifblim maybe. This still won't knock out if it's not a crunch, so I can no-shield this. And kind of depends on if they want to switch or not here. Shadow Punch will be enough at this range. A little bit of more efficient attack right now. Sometimes people play for alignment there. This opponent did not. And this is a very nasty farm down. I do not like this even remotely. So what does this tell me? They do not go for switch. They have a Verizon, already a super hard counter into my Steelix. I want to get this move off because I might have to land a fly later, so I need to pull those shields. This kind of tells me that they have another answer to my Steelix. As stupid as this sounds, I'm actually going into my Steelix here. Because I expect that they have another answer in the back. Now, what that might look like, if it's like a Cobalion, yeah, we die anyway. If it's like a Ghost type, I'm fine here. And it is a Dusknoir in the back. We have the perfect counter for that, and that's just great. If I swap my Galarian Moltres into Verizon, which would be the logical play, I would have lost this battle for sure, because this would have had a shield advantage into my Steelix, or at least would get my Moltres also really low. And now that didn't happen. Next battle is against everyone's favorite. It is Zygarde. At least his counts Belly Bolt, so it has some bonus points in my books. A lot of these Zygarde I've noticed run Bulldoze and then either Outrage or Crunch. Bulldoze is a matchup. If they have Bulldoze, it entirely relies on debuffs here. It looks like I don't get the first debuff, so not exactly in my favor, but Bulldoze is such a weak attack. It's not going to do a lot either. And they do get the drop here. So that is likely meaning that they're going to win the evens here. Zygarde comes with Poison or Steel type Pokemon. Galarian Moltres is quite fine into Zygarde when there's not a lot of play, not a lot of shields in play, because you usually tend to resist all their energy, which is really nice. I'm going to farm up and then swap into my Dusknoir, which might not be ideal, but I don't really think that they have Bulldoze plus Crunch. That'd be a crazy moveset. They swap into Corviknight. Makes kind of sense because it's their weaker Pokemon into Steelix, I guess. But this is a bummer for me. Let me tell you why. Galarian Moltres is great into Corviknight, especially if you have Payback, because you double resist Sand attack, and most of these have a second attack Payback that is resisted by Galarian Moltres, so they have to go for the less efficient Sky Attack or Iron Head. This opponent lets it go entirely. In the back is a Volt Switch Fortress. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you see that correctly. Bug Bite is a very good fast attack right now. My opponent decided to counter Water type and Flying type Pokemon with this, so they actually are not throwing at all, and this kind of makes it easier to catch as well, because I think that's one of the things I'm going to try here. This Fortress is already hardly scary, because the fact they let everything go means that my Galarian Moltres is going to deal a lot of damage with Sucker Punch to farm everything down later. I get a Charge Tech Purity Tie catch on the Heavy Slam. Really cool play. Would have looked even cooler if I had actually one CMP, but Steelix does not win a lot of Charge Tech Purity Tie there. And now I can just get a very clean farm down here. I still have that Dusknoir with a little bit of energy as well, and Fortress only usually packs higher energy attacks such as Earthquake and Rock Tomb. If there's Sand Tomb, Mirror Shot, they tend not to knock out. I know that the Fortress doesn't have 2 attacks, so I feel comfortable shielding here. And I'm getting very close to 2 fly here. Getting the farm done entirely. Thank you, Zygarde, for being so bulky. For once, that's helpful. And then I have 2 fly, Galarian Moltres, Wind Charge Security Tie into the Fortress, meaning we are going to lock up this game right here. Very interesting team for my opponent. I've seen Fortress quite often, but usually more with Bug Bite than with Volt Switch. In our next game, we are playing against a Guzzlord, and this is a very fine lead because they charge slower than we do. At least if they don't want to throw a charge security tie. So especially if you can get a debuff on the first attack. A lot of Guzzlords tend to swap out after the debuff. If they don't get debuff, they tend to stay in. My opponent doesn't get debuffed, they do go for another Dragon Tail and then either the Brutal Swing or a Crunch. Crunch could be a little bit more scary if they get a debuff. But as long as I have this here, it's not that bad anyway. This breaks our backline hard. So I really am happy to see this here. This tends to come with a Talonflame or with a Tentacruel, so that's kind of what I'm expecting in the back here. I think that Dusknoir is going to be really good, so I really don't want to use any shields anywhere. And I think I can barely hang on to this attack here, and then I'm going to swap out, because I doubt that they have a Dusknoir answer in the back. They actually simul-swap into a Shadow Feraligatr, which is tough. But Dusknoir, not helpless here, because I will be able to get this very low in the 2-shield scenario. I will live this Hydro Cannon and could make that a little bit more favorable for me. I'm actually going to double shield this immediately, which is not ideal, but I have so much energy. Even that Guzzlord doesn't want to come take that. Well, maybe they do if they just want to sweep with their last Pokemon. But whatever their final Pokemon is, this Gator doesn't get to another charge stack. It's gonna eat a lot here. I do have my Steelix still with a Breaking Swipe, and I kind of want to throw my energy from the Steelix into that. So I'm gonna wait before the Dragon Tail lands to make sure that I'm able to swap safely and then swap in Steelix to throw this energy, and they do let that go. In the back is a Drifblim, which is our friend. Now we can bring in Galarian Moltres and meet this other flyer that is a Ghost type Pokemon. You will live 2 Icy Wind, but with so many Astonish, 2 Icy Wind could barely be enough to get a knockout. I just need to get some shields here. I should be able to live 1 Astonish on my Dusknoir, because I have 2 Shadow Punch loaded already. I should be very fine, because Dusknoir charges even with Astonish still quite quickly to the Shadow Punch. If you have Hex, you charge even quicker though, but you deal a lot less fast attack pressure. Hex only really helps Dusknoir neutralize bad matchups a little bit, so kind of a choice if you want to consider that, but Astonish generally just performs better. Shadow Punch going to knock out this Drifblim, and that's another win. The final battle for the marbles, Steelix into Steelix, and this is not my favorite. I really hope that they don't have a Galarian Moltres in the back, so I'm swapping in my Dusknoir immediately. My opponent's staying in for a little bit, which is interesting. I'm gonna throw this Dynamic Punch right here, and they actually catch it on a Venusaur, which is a pretty gross catch. That is resisted right there. Would have loved to have this on my Galarian Moltres, but that's live, I guess, sometimes. Since they didn't swap out into a counter, I have a feeling it's probably their own Ghost type in the back, potentially another Drifblim, and you know how we feel about Drifblim by now. All those Drifblim looking for the Gastrodon are going to find my Galarian Moltres, hopefully. And my ground type doesn't even lose to Drifblim, so it's even better. Shadow Punch being shielded. I will fight for switch here because my Steelix does nothing into theirs. And here's another beautiful thing. My Galarian Moltres, the energy is just not good into it. The Steelix is going to put in a dent though. I'm going for Shadow Punch there and then Heart Swap because I feel like it's not a ghost in the back. If I went for the Dynamic Punch there, this Steelix may have potentially killed me with an Earthquake or a Crunch there. So that's why I went for Shadow Punch instead. And as you can see here, Psychic Fangs double resisted. The Thunder Fangs are going to add up, however. And then I'll go for a Payback right away. This Payback will knock out or get really close to knocking out this Steelix. And they actually shield that up. What could be in the back? Is it that Drifblim? I'm really hoping it is. It needs to be something like a Ghost. And since they are staying in, I will be able to save this Fly Swap into my Dusknoir. If this is only a Psychic Fang or Breaking Swipe, then this will not secure a knockout. It is a Psychic Fangs. In the back is a Jellicent, and this is actually probably game over. Now, here's a scary thing, right? Because this Jellicent gets exactly 4 Hex, meaning they come out with a Surf. However, if I bring in my Galarian Moltres, I might get 1 turn lag, and then they get the attack off before I do, and I might lose the battle. But taking 2 Surf on the Shadow Steelix is almost going to knock me out as well. So this is just not ideal that I'm so afraid of the game state here. Luckily, my Shadow Steelix is just good enough to hang on to 2 Surf here, and I will be able to just throw a Breaking Swipe, get a knockout or close to one more fast attack to knock it out. Sucker Punch or Thunder Fang will knock it out. They still have the Venusaur, which I forgot about actually by now. They still have the Steelix, but I have a Fly loaded. Don't lag. I don't lag there. I have 1 HP on the Galarian Moltres, but remember that the Jellicent faints to 1 Sucker Punch, and that Sucker Punch is gonna take us to the Legend rank. The next couple days, I'll be commentating at the World Championships in Anaheim this season. Make sure to check that out. I'll drop the link in the description. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.